Today's podcast is brought to you by Dell Expert Network. Dell Expert members receive a dedicated account manager. This is a personal one-on-one partnership dedicated to helping you grow your business. All account managers are extensively trained on a variety of Dell products. Your dedicated account manager, who is backed by a team of both subject matter and technical experts, will help you identify, plan, and execute projects for your clients. Together, your Dell Expert Network team will help you find the right solutions for your clients as well as flesh out larger opportunities. Join Dell Expert Network now at www.dell.com/expert network to partner with your dedicated account manager.
You're entering the MSP Zone, a podcast for the managed services community, covering news, analysis, and interviews from around the globe. Elevate your MSP game by staying in the MSP Zone. And now, your host, Charles Weaver.
Welcome back. Actually, why am I welcoming you back? I'm the one that's coming back, so the other way around, I guess. It's been a while since we did an episode because we had the Thanksgiving break here in the U.S., and before that we had some travel that came up. So it's been a bit of a chaotic last week or so. But never worry. We are always here talking about things, managed services all day long. And we've got you covered. And today is no exception. Today we don't talk a lot about sales because, well, it's an old topic. It's not that it's not important. It's just it's an old topic. It's been around as long as we've been around, which is to say that since the beginning of the managed services profession, we've had sales related debates, problems. It's an ongoing challenge for a lot of MSP owners, a lot of MSP operators, executives who work in the managed services profession, and for obvious reasons. It's not easy. It's necessary, but it's not easy. And so I had what do you want to call it? A moment of clarity, singularity, a breakthrough, just one of those moments of thinking about things that, are kind of an old topic like this, and you look at it from a new perspective and you say, I've never seen it from that vantage point. And that's what I wanted to talk about today is some new perspectives, at least for me. Some of you out there may have figured this stuff out a long time ago. Great. If so, I'd love to hear your feedback. Are we on the right track? Are we off the right track? But for a lot of you, I suspect that this is going to be a topic area that maybe you've heard about before, but maybe not in this particular way. And I'm going to try to break down and make as easy as possible what I know is a very challenging topic and subject matter for a lot of you. And I hope that the outcome of today's episode will be that you have some new ways of looking at sales in your managed services practice, and will be able to put these things into practice immediately and to the benefit of your company. So that's my goal. Let's see if we get there. All right. Let's just take a quick stock of where we are for the last 30 years in managed services sales. The early days of the managed services profession saw what I still agree with to this day is the theory that not a theory. It's a belief that to be successful at sales in managed services, you cannot use legacy hardware, software salespeople. I still subscribe to that theory because if you're really good at selling hardware, if you're really good at selling software, those are good skills. And I'm not minimizing it, but those aren't the same skill sets as you need to be successful at selling managed services, a professional service. which is why historically we have seen tremendous success. When I say we've seen success, I mean, we've studied MSPs who have done this, and we know that it works. It can work, and it can work time and again every time that it's tried. Which is when you take a professional service sales professional, right? Someone, let's say, who worked in insurance, or someone who worked in another professional service area in a sales or customer development type of role, right? Not service delivery is what I'm talking about, but someone who's like an account person, someone who is in charge of making customers happy. Most of the time that's under the sales umbrella, but you get my point. It's not on the service side. It's not what I'm talking about. If you take people from the professional services sales community and you put them into a managed services environment, they will typically thrive because they are used to selling in that model. And that's kind of ground, table stakes. That's the fundamentals that I think we have figured out over 20 plus years of looking at this profession, is that you really want to be successful at selling managed services. You got to have someone who at least is not so ingrained in the hardware software sales model, because that is a very different it's a very different skill set. Now, I have to say, just for the record, I am completely aware that there are a lot of scenarios where you would have a hardware software sales person or team. Typically, this is very, very typical when you see it in larger organizations that are heavy on the VAR or the break fix side, where you will see not necessarily people who are unable to sell managed services. You have sales leadership, which could also mean company leadership, who do not want to change or in any way mess with the sales compensation models that have worked for them as a VAR, and they don't want to risk that in managed services. Now, we've seen some that have worked. We've seen VARs that have successfully significantly grown managed services teams, managed services business units. All right, but it's an exception. I'll say that it is rare. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. It can happen, but typically, this is just my personal perspective here. My opinion is that whenever you see in a mixed service delivery environment, meaning that you have managed services, hardware, software, professional services, break fix, hosting, something, it's a mixed blend of products that you're selling to customers. Whenever you have those and you have a failing or underperforming managed services sales team, it is more often than not, my first area of examination is going to be, well, what's the compensation plan? And are you unfairly pressing your thumb on the scales to incentivize everything other than managed services, sometimes to the exclusion of managed services? Now, that's a separate topic, right? We're gonna put a dog ear on that one. We're gonna come back to that maybe later. But that's a separate topic. I just want you to be aware of that. What I'm talking about today is in a managed services environment where the sales team, sales leadership, company leadership all want managed services to grow, and there isn't any real significant threat of a dominant, let's say, hardware, software sales division that is going to be harmed by this. And there are some ways that we can skirt that, but I just want to set up the discussion properly. In an environment where you have a managed services product line and you want to push it and you want to aggressively grow it, there are two schools of thought. you are either going to recruit new customers and or you are going to have referrals. Referrals is the same thing as new customer acquisition. The point is, you can't have a managed services shop that is solely treading water, meaning that all you're doing is dealing with existing customers and you rarely ever add new customers. That is not an optimal growth strategy. You won't grow. In fact, what you will likely do is you will likely begin to drown, because at some point, some customer attrition, no matter how happy they are, maybe they go out of business, they get acquired, whatever. If you're not growing, you're shrinking, right? That's a very common and old maxim that is still true today. So you have existing customers, you have to make sure they're taken care of, and then you have to acquire new customers. New customer acquisition typically comes from either referrals or a more organic sales-driven approach. It's that sales-driven approach that stymies a lot of MSP owners and operators. Why? Is it because they're not smart? No, it's not because you're not smart. Is it because you're more focused on the technical? No, I don't think that's true. I think it's a lack of familiarity. And I think, and this is one of my breakthroughs, is I think that most people look at sales in a very different light compared to how they look at their managed services, their service delivery, meaning. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, you take your garden variety MSP business owner who started maybe as a technician, as an engineer, as a technical person themselves. And they understand technology. They like technology. It's in their blood. It's something they are familiar with, and that's maybe why they got into managed services to begin with. But they didn't get an MBA. They didn't go to business school. They never spent time selling in a professional capacity. And so whenever you talk to those people about sales, they say, "Wow, that's so foreign to me. That's so unlike things that I like doing." What do they like doing? Well, in my experience, these types of technical business owners and operators love tracking things. They love, they look at ticket boards. They would rather spend their day looking at trouble tickets and looking at ticket trends and looking at their customer satisfaction rates. And they would rather look at the number of devices under management or user seats under management, and look at how their service delivery is performing. Right? They like numbers. They're mathematical people in many cases. They're scientific people in many cases, and they like that. So I think myself, well, that makes sense. That's why they're drawn to that thing, that profession in the first place. But does that mean that they are forever prohibited from getting invested in and really championing a managed services sales team, an engine that is going to match the service delivery engine that they've created? Quite the opposite. In fact, for those of you taking notes, here's the first one. If you have successfully built a repeatable, scalable, growth-oriented, profitable, did I say profitable? I'll say it again. Profitable managed services business, there is no reason that you can't also do the same on the sales side. I would argue all of the skill sets that made you successful in creating an engine that can deliver managed services on a repeatable, scalable, profitable basis are the same skill sets, the same muscle memory, the same elements that will also make you successful in creating an equal, separate but integrated managed services sales engine that will complement your service delivery and match it. All right, Charles. I'm bought in. How do you do it? All right, well, here it is. First of all, acknowledge that you don't have the skill sets internally, and you're going to have to go outside. You're going to have to go look outside, because if you don't understand what you're doing, you're just going to be throwing darts at a dartboard with a blindfold on. You need some help, and I am not, because I already know it's going to happen. Hey, can you recommend some professionals? I'll say this. I'm not going to recommend anyone by name. There are a lot of good people and firms out there. Some of them are MSP focused. A lot are not. Most are not. Whether you want to use someone, in fact, I'll go out on a limb. And I don't want to call anyone up by name, because I just think that there's a lot of snake oil out there when it comes to managed services sales, and there's a lot of stuff that is just junk, and it tends to land more on the marketing side. And when I say that, I am not saying that you don't need marketing. What I'm saying is marketing is separate from your sales engine creation. And first and foremost, what you need to do is you need to go out there and you need to say, what am I selling? And what people do I need to deliver that sales message? And if you haven't figured that out, then a sales consultant who could first come in and, let's say, create job descriptions for a couple of layers of sales professional, right? So some of you were saying, well, man, the first person I need to hire is a vice president of sales. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe that's the problem. You know how expensive VPs of sales are, and how hard they are to find. I mean, maybe you need to start with a sales associate. Maybe you need to start with an account executive. Maybe you need to start with whatever your term is, an entry-level salesperson who is just going to be, setting up appointments. Maybe someone who's going to be interacting with customers, but on a limited basis. Okay. Well, what's that job description look like? Well, I don't know. I've never hired for one. My point exactly. You've only hired level 1, level 2, level 3 technicians all your life. And you've done very well at that. You understand that. And you've got great job descriptions for those job roles. But you've never done that for an entry-level or intermediate salesperson, have you? Okay. Get some help. Plunk down some money. Hire a consultant who will come in and, as part of the deliverables, right? If they're going to sell you on a 2-day boot camp, maybe you say, thanks, but no thanks. What I need you to come and look at my company, look at my managed services, portfolio, a menu of items that we sell, and I need you to look at and examine our sales strategy. And they might say that. They might say, hey, before we can create the job descriptions, we need to understand your business. All right, fine. It shouldn't take that long, though. A couple of hours, and they should be able to figure that out. Tell them that you're a professional services firm. That'll help, right? If you're not selling hardware, right? If you tell them, look, I want to sell, big box units of servers and storage, network attached storage devices, you're going to get a different type of sales coach or sales guidance. If you tell them that you're looking for a professional service sales team, that's going to give them what they need in order to give you the right advice. What they're going to likely come up with first is a sales methodology. How do you sell today? Which will most likely be answered by the vast majority of you, especially in the smaller, the SMB market. It's going to be, it's the owner. The owner goes out there and sells, or we get some referral businesses from really happy customers. Well, that's not really a sales methodology, is it? So they're going to have to come in and create a sales methodology. Now, pointer number 2, they're not going to really have to create a sales methodology. Why? Because they already exist. There's tons of them out there. Now, I'm not a sales methodology expert, But I understand enough about sales to understand that there are tried and true sales plans, methodologies. This is how you go about structuring a sales team. It's how you sell within a company. It's how you put together the individual component pieces. It's how you compensate. It's how you train the people. It's the type of people that you want to hire. It's the base pay plus their comp plan. It's how to avoid conflicts and how to create incentives, not disincentives for certain behavior. Someone told me recently, compensation plans don't create good behavior. They will accentuate what already exists, meaning they're not going to create a good salesperson. You have to have a good salesperson. The compensation is to reward them for doing what they're supposed to be doing in the first place, right? It's not going to create good behavior. It rewards good behavior is the point. And someone said that to me, and I said, that makes a lot of sense. But I had never thought of it before. I had thought of it the exact opposite. I thought, well, if you want to have an outcome, you have to commission somebody or a team to do that. Well, that's still true, but you still need to have the right people in the right roles. And that's what a sales methodology overview is going to do. So they're going to come up and they'll probably say, "Hey, are you part of the Sandler School?" All right, that's one of them that's out there, and there's many of them out there. And in the professional sales community, if you get a professional sales consultant, even someone outside the managed services realm, they will understand. Because why I'm recommending and maybe a little urging going outside of our industry is simply because if you're a really good professional services sales person, you don't have to be. You could sell pharmaceuticals. You could sell. And I understand pharmaceuticals isn't a professional service, but you could sell any type of professional service within reason. And you could be successful at many different types of companies in different sales positions because you're a professional salesperson. And yeah, they are professionals. They have training. They have ongoing training, just like you guys do on the technical side. Remember what I said before? You're building a sales engine that will mirror and complement your service delivery engine. I meant that. Sales is not an art form. Sales is a profession. It takes training. It takes ongoing sharpening of your skills and honing of those skills. And you always have to be evolving as a sales professional to be good and to keep being good at what you do. So methodology is the first one. And that methodology assessment is going to be really critical because a good consultant should be able to tell you what type of methodology might lend itself towards your type of business. It will also, if you've already got maybe one or two salespeople, or maybe you don't have any, that is also, I'm assuming, going to factor into the type of methodology that they recommend. And then they're likely going to start helping you create job descriptions. All right. Well, what type of people do you need in order to sell the type of managed services that you currently deliver? Guess what, folks? It's going to be different for each one of you. Some of you might be more security dominant. Some of you might be selling more in a particular field, like maybe in medical, maybe in accounting, maybe in banking, right? All of these things will factor into the type of people and therefore the type of job descriptions that you have. But you have to have them. You want to go out there and recruit and hire a salesperson? Guess what? You need a very good, well-written job description. Now, that's one of the big demarcation points, in my opinion, where I see a technical dominant managed services owner operator who is very accustomed to working within a job description for a level 1 technician, someone who can understand networking, maybe someone who could do a little bit of firewall work, but little servers, but They have a core set of things that they need from that level 1 technician, given what they do, and they're comfortable with that. They've been comfortable with that for years. But they don't have the same comfort at all in creating a similar kind of level 1 sales job description. That needs to be ironed out, and that needs to be addressed immediately. Following the methodology and the job description and therefore the type of people. And part of that is also going to be, and you haven't heard me talk, that much about it, but compensation. I'm not going to tell you what compensation plans you ought to be using because there's so many different options and models available. But suffice it to say that a good sales consultant should be able to assist you with that as well, and should be able to tell you what maybe a little bit of a market. They should be aware of what the market drivers are, what the market norms are for, different levels of sales professional, entry, mid, senior, and what base, commission, kind of percentages and mixtures are appropriate for each. They should be able to tell you that. But what they should also be able to tell you is what metrics you need to follow. Right? Remember, I said you may not actually need a VP of sales. Well, what I meant by that is you may not be able to afford one, number one. Number two, if you've already got, let's say, a business owner who is comfortable working within the systems, the applications used by the company, and I'm including like CRM systems, sales systems, then a sales consultant that could develop the methodology, the job descriptions, the comp plans should also be able to help you develop metrics, sales metrics that can be used to track performance. Now, the tracking of the performance, I think any MSP owner operator should be able to do. Now, if you are big enough and you can go out and hire a senior salesperson, maybe a director level or a VP of sales, then they should be able to do all of this, all right? But if you don't have that, don't worry, because someone in your company, an operations person, if you, the owner, are too busy, then an owner or an operator, an operations person should be able to perform oversight functions on a salesperson or a small sales team, provided you have the right metrics. Meaning that you understand what is important to the performance of that salesperson or team. They are entering the data accurately, and you are therefore holding them to account for any deviation, or if they are overachieving, you're equally, encouraging them and telling them that they're doing a good job. You need to manage them, is the point. Just the same way you manage your service team, you have a service manager, perhaps in many cases. Even the smallest MSPs have service managers, service operators, types of positions who oversee the technical teams, and they can look at the same dashboards and look at tickets and ticket closure rates, and how long they're staying open, and is one team or one individual spending too much time working on tickets and all those things. You got to do the same type of analysis with certain metrics on the sales side, and a sales consultant should be able to build that for you. And finally, and this is the thing that I think really, if you don't have it internally, you might just have to have a consultant relationship that is ongoing, and that is for training. What I mean by that is if you are not of the size in your managed services practice where you have a sales professional who can manage this and do these things for you, right? Everything that I've said, if you've got a VP of sales, guess what? They should be able to do all of this stuff. Create the methodology, create the job description, create the metrics that will be used to track performance, and then also to perform ongoing training. If you've got a VP of sales who can't do one or more of these things, they're probably not a real VP of sales. But my point is, if you've got someone who is a true VP or director or a sales leader, they should be able to do all of these things reasonably well. If you don't, and that's, again, I'm talking to the vast majority of more SMB focused, MSPs, maybe 50 employee shops or below. You need training, sales training for your 1, 2, 3, 4, however many people on the sales team you have. You need to train them, because that is the whetstone that keeps the blade sharp. And I understand that you may say, well, Charles, I have no clue what sales training ought to look like. I can't, I do training for our technical people all day long, but I'm not a sales professional. Gosh, this is why I'm listening to your podcast in the first place, is to tell me how to figure this out. Don't worry, we got you covered. If that's you, go to your sales consultant and say, what does it look like for us to engage you for an ongoing sales training regimen? Now, I'm not talking about management oversight, right? I'm going to be very clear. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is maybe quarterly, maybe monthly sales training, sales material creation, the constant refinement of the sales professional persona, not just how to deal with no, not just how to navigate sales in a social media world, how to deal with Gen Z buyers who are cropping up in the sales process more and more frequently as that generation occupies higher and higher levels of position in the corporate world. How do you stay cutting edge? How do you develop and cultivate skills that, absent a formal training program, will become dull over time? That's a sales training regimen. And it's worth its weight in gold. If you can't do it internally, outsource it. There are tons of places that can do it. Most good sales consultants, if they can't do it, they should at least be able to say, yeah, we know some good sales training platforms. Maybe some of it will be in person, some of it might be online, whatever. You can make that decision yourself. The point is, you got to have it. Now, I've given you 4 kind of concepts: methodology, metrics, training, and people. All these things are achievable by even the smallest of MSP shops. And when you have these things in place, and I'm telling you folks, you could go from today to maybe in 30 days from now, you could have all of these elements up and operational. And maybe, if you're lucky, maybe even be on your way towards having hired or hiring that first salesperson. But don't go into 2023 if you are not functional in a sales capacity. Don't enter the new year without a beginning strategy to build these fundamental sales engine components. Because once you do, I guarantee you your company will behave differently. You will actually have people out there pulling the cart. And it won't be just the service delivery team. There'll be people who are beating the bushes, people who are getting appointments, people who are interacting with potential customers, interacting with sales referrals, cultivating them in a professional, methodical way, and generating revenue, we hope, for your company. Let that be your New Year's resolution, even in the late days of November, because it's a vast majority of you out there, and I know that a lot of you struggle with this. I believe me, I hear you, and I know that you struggle because you tell us you struggle. Well, it's easier than you may think, and my recommendation is hire a sales consultant. Go look for a non-managed services sales consultant. See what they do. Interview a few. Get comfortable. It'll make a world of difference. I guarantee it.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a like. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast so you will get notified when future episodes are released. We will see you next time in the MSP Zone.